Koji Kondo's music for the game changed based on the in-game time of day and location. The character Navi was introduced to aid new players unfamiliar with 3D environments. Ganondorf, the main antagonist, only has one main scene before the final battle. Link's iconic spin attack was easier to execute due to the game's Z-targeting system. Ocarina of Time was the first Zelda game with a jumping mechanic, albeit automatic. Epona, Link's horse, was added after fans' requests for faster in-game travel. Time travel in the game was inspired by the switching mechanics of Link to the Past. Miyamoto's childhood experiences in forests and caves inspired the game's sense of exploration. The Temple of Time's design was influenced by traditional Japanese temples. Sheik's true identity is a nod to the duality of characters in previous Zelda games. The Gerudo symbol was altered in later versions for religious sensitivity. The Shadow Temple hints at a darker history of Hyrule not openly discussed. The Water Temple was simplified in 3DS Remake due to fan feedback on its complexity. The Forest Temple originally was meant to be the Wind Temple in early game drafts. Ocarina of Time used a modified Super Mario 64 engine for its development. The Ocarina melodies were carefully designed to be memorable and easily playable. Fishing was almost excluded until developers decided on it as a mini-game. The Mirror Shield design was changed in subsequent versions for its original controversial imagery. The Red enemies caused genuine fear in many players, making them iconic. The Lon Lon Ranch song has become an emblematic melody for longtime Zelda fans. Collision detection improvements were made so Link wouldn't get stuck in the game's 3D environments. The game's art style took inspiration from both Western and Japanese medieval fantasies. Ambient noises in Kokiri Forest were designed to create a living, breathing ecosystem feel. The Triforce lore expanded significantly with this title, becoming central to the series. Many NPCs have unique day and night routines, showcasing the game's dynamic world. Miyamoto reduced combat elements to place greater emphasis on puzzle solving and exploration. The game's 7-year gap symbolizes Link's transition from childhood to adulthood. The Song of Storms paradox remains a popular discussion point among fans. Gorons were inspired by Japanese stone statues and myths about mountain spirits. Kakariko Village's well hides many mysteries and is key to the Shadow Temple's story. The Dead Hand mini-boss was inspired by Japanese horror tales and ghost stories. Link's voice actor provided both young and adult Link's grunts and shouts. Dynamic weather was a technical marvel at the time of the game's release. Z-targeting was introduced to address the challenges of combat in a 3D space. The game's dungeons symbolize various stages of life, from birth to death. The Gerudo training ground is entirely optional and provides lore about the desert thieves. Ocarina of Time introduced a day and night cycle that impacted puzzles, events, and enemy spawns. The fairy designs were based on classical sprites from European folklore. Ocarina of Time set standards for action-adventure games, influencing countless titles. This title introduced recurring characters like Malon and Talon in the Zelda series. Zelda's Lullaby has been remixed in numerous subsequent Zelda games. Link's house was designed to make players feel safe and away from the game's dangers. The Great Deku Tree represents nature's wisdom and the passage of time. The game's magic meter was a new addition, allowing for more complex abilities. Twin Rover, the Witch Bosses, symbolize the fusion of ice and fire, two opposing forces. The Sun Song was a method for players to quickly manipulate the game's time mechanic. The Gossip Stones scattered around Hyrule have unique reactions to different items. The character Ruto represents the responsibilities and burdens of royalty. The Master Sword's design took inspiration from historical European longswords, symbolizing Link's heroic stature. Initial game drafts featured Link as a tech-savvy character in a more futuristic setting than the final medieval one.